Welcome everybody to my channel, but we have a special guest today, which is Tranquil Dionysian. Did I say it correctly? Make sure I say these things correctly every time.
Close enough.
Close
Dionysian.
enough? Dionysian. I'm sorry. I always say it.
Yeah.
I mispronounce literally everything. Characters' names, like, it's a me problem. But welcome back to the channel, my friend. We also did a recent interview over on your channel a couple of weeks ago. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead to his channel. I'll put the link down in the description below. Go ahead and subscribe. Got awesome Berserk and anime content on there. And welcome back, man. Good to have you.
Yeah, glad to be back. I always love talking to you about Berserk and anime in general.
Yeah, so we said that we might get together again because Berserk has given us these 6 chapters that it said it was going to in order to finish this segment of the story. And we kind of have the conclusion of either the Elf Island chapters or just all of Fantasia, and it's kind of come to a close, but a very somber close, a very kind of very Berserk closing, I guess. And it's interesting to me because it's interesting to always see the fan reactions to things, I think, the most, because for me, I remember when we were getting the chapters like 2 a year or 1 a year, you know, people were complaining that Berserk was too slow, or it's too happy now, or everyone on the island is just having a good time and dancing around, like things are too good. Where's the action, right? And then in the last 6 chapters, we literally have so much stuff happen, and now people are like, it's going too fast. What's happening? like the pacing's all weird, and it's like, I don't know, man. You can't win sometimes. You can't win. You can't have your slow moments or your fast moments. I feel like sometimes people kind of, I don't know. It's hard to keep everyone happy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of 2 things. I mean, Mira took so long between chapters. I mean, sometimes it'd be 8, 9, 12, 15 months between a chapter. So it kind of felt slower in that regard. But also, I think his pacing was a lot more methodical. I mean, I'm not saying that Studio Gaga or Koji Mori are going too quickly through it, but it does seem a little more brisk than what Mira would have done. So, and I mean, have we ever had Berserk on a monthly basis like this? I mean, it's so weird as it is.
Yeah, not in my time of being a fan. That's for definite sure. I think I had someone look up when was the last time we got 7 chapters in 1 year, because we're gonna get one more by the time the year ends. And I think the last time somebody said was like 2010 or something like that. So it's been quite a while since we have. But we have a lot to go on here, man. And there's a lot of stuff that happened in these previous chapters, and a lot of stuff to theorize about what is going to happen from now on. So. Yeah, let's go through it, man. So first things first, let's see. You had a great list for us, so let me grab that and pull that up. So let's see. First thing here is best fight in the entire Fantasia arc. I love that. Let's start with that, man. Let's start with the best fight.
You want me to go first, or do you want to take it away?
Go first. If you got one, go first.
Okay, let me, oh boy, don't want to do that. Oh, shoot. You know what? Doing the screen recording, so I can't look at my list of everything I put on there.
Yeah, I was having that problem, too.
Okay, I'll just go through my memory. So, best fights in the Fantasia arc. So, we got Guts Against the Tentacles, Roderick
everything that happened on the island. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that happened on the island. Do you count Rickard versus Griffith? Is that a fight, or is that just annihilation right there?
I would count all that stuff, because I would count Rickard's entire adventure there. Like, I would count Salat versus Rakshas, or them teaming up to fight Rakshas and the escape and everything. I consider that all as one, I suppose.
Yeah. I think this will, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with Guts versus a sea god. I mean, that was such a climactic battle, and it was one in which, you know, to get to the sea god's heart, he had to go through, like, all those eels and spiders and, like, the maggots on the boat. So that whole little sequence leading up to that moment, and it not only just the battle itself, because, I mean, essentially it was just a giant beating heart. It wasn't like it was fighting back. It was using a different sort of, like, defense mechanism, if you will. But it was more of a internal struggle with Guts. You know, he had to sort of not only like team up with the Beast of Darkness, but find a way in which they could like sort of share the same objective, be like, okay, let's use each other's powers here so that we can defeat the sea god. And it was kind of getting past his own little internal inhibitions and sort of breaking free of that. So that was really cool. And then I love the fact too that you had the assistance from the Marrow, and Shirka was inside the Berserker armor. She was helping out as well. So in a lot of regards, Guts has always been that character that's like, I'll do it myself. I'll take on 100 men by myself. I'll fight this, that. I don't need anyone else's help. But here it was like he was relying on other people, not so much as a choice, but a necessity. And it just, I think it came about so beautifully. And one of my favorite moments in the entire manga in general, as well as the Fantasia arc, is right after that battle when he's in that darkness and then he comes out into the light and the Marrow save him. And he's kind of looks like Jesus on the cross a little bit. It's so symbolic and just so beautiful in so many ways. So I think that would definitely be my top fight for the Fantasia arc.
That image in itself could be a painting. You could literally put Guts being carried up by the Marrows and just slap that on the wall, and it would just look like a beautiful fucking painting to have in the background. I love the Guts versus the Sea God battle. In fact, again, that's one thing that fans sometimes say is it kind of feels like filler or whatnot. But like you said, I think it has a lot to do with Guts kind of coming to terms with needing to use the Beast of Darkness for his own benefit, not allowing one to take over the other, but to kind of work in that unison. And just think about the scope of it, because Berserk drastically changed at the end of Millennium Empire. Literally changed the entire worldscape of the entire manga, which is crazy to think 34 volumes in, we're all of a sudden going to pull this switch and the astral world is going to just dominate over the physical world, and now we live in a world where sea gods can and do exist. And so to me, I always felt the Sea God segment was a little bit of a setup to that, just to show you how different the world is now compared to what it was then. You thought trolls were bad. You thought, battles in war were bad. Now we have literally sea gods that can take over entire islands and simulate people into being their tentacles. Thank God it killed the pirates, because I fucking hate those characters. But it just shows the entire landscape of what Berserk is and what Berserk could be moving forward. And it also goes back to a bunch of Lovecraftian Cthulhu type creatures, these giant, kaiju world dominators, world destroyers, and that's kind of what it reminded me of. The Sea God always reminded me of what people would imagine is at the darkest depths of the ocean, or the things that we don't understand about the ocean, where the fear comes from and everything. So in short, I love that arc. I love that segment. It's great. I'd probably put that as my number one also. Just simply the sheer scope of it. We literally have Guts inside the body of a giant creature, trying to step towards the heart. As it's beating, the echoing and the vibrations just are making him he would have died if not for the armor, basically, protecting him. So yeah, that's insane. It's absolutely insane. Other than that,
and go ahead. Just to add on that a little bit, and I felt with that battle too, everyone sort of complemented each other and kind of came into their own. You had Farnese defending the ship with her magic. Eastro was taking assertiveness and attacking Bonebeard's crew. You had Guts and Shirka working in tandem. It just kind of, for some reason though, Serpico kind of seemed like he wasn't doing too much. I thought he would have been doing a little more, but besides that, everyone else sort of kind of came together as a team. The Guts party has been together for a while now, ever since Enoch Village, but it's always kind of been this person's shining here, this person's shining there, but it was kind of that first moment where it's wow, these guys really know how to work together now.
Yeah, they're better together, and look at the things that they can accomplish by doing it. If it wasn't for all of them, even Isma, in the Marrows, because they're all connected. If it wasn't for all of them working together, they wouldn't have been able to do it. You got Roderick giving the commands on the ship, telling everybody what to do. You got Farnese with the shield, like you said. Shirke connected to Guts. I guess Serpico is kind of the only one that was didn't really have much to do, but
I don't remember what he was doing during that time. I'm sure he was doing something, but was he watching over Shirka's body when she was kind of out of it?
Might have been, yeah. He might have been. I can't quite remember either, to be honest. But but that's I think that was the whole idea behind it too. is that it just shows that with the experience that these characters have, how much better they are at doing things. And then like later on when they get to Elfhelm, where Farnese is kind of showing her abilities in front of all of the students of magic, they're all like, how is she so good? Like, we've been training so long, and this chick just comes along and just is able to do everything that we're doing. It's like, because she has that real life experience, because she's been in the shit, she's been in the battle, she's been actually like doing work, you know? And so yeah, I think it all leads towards that. So definitely that's number one. Despite it might not be the best moments, but as far as the best battle, I think it utilizes all of the characters perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as a quick aside, it's not really much of a fight, as it were. It goes by pretty quickly, but like the moment in which Irvine takes down the cockatrice, I always thought that was such a badass moment. The way he shoots it right through his mouth, it just like
and like explodes.
As a singular moment, that was just so awesome. I just love that. Irvine, like, as an apostle, probably one of my favorites, to be honest with you. So anytime he's in battle, it's just like, here we go.
Yeah, he's the man, dude. Like, I want to see more from him, almost more than any other, like, apostle that we got right now. I mean, there's a lot of cool ones. Like, Rakshas, I think, is pretty cool, but I don't know his current status, because he kind of got shot with a giant rocket. And so, like, he's probably still alive, you know, but we haven't seen him since, so who knows. But Irvine's one of the best.
That was a good battle, too, with Rickards against Roxas. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was great, man. It was great to see Rickard come back. Let's talk about that, actually, because technically, before the Fantasia arc, we hadn't seen Rickard since, way back when Guts finally left to go, wander by himself, basically, or with Casca. And so...
Yeah, I think the last time we saw him was Hill of Swords, probably like chapter 178 or 180 or something.
Yeah, like right around there. And so Guts goes off, and you kind of forget about Rickard after a while. And I think that's the clever thing about it, is that you kind of forget about him, the story goes in a completely different direction, and then all of a sudden, what better character to reintroduce us to Falconia than somebody we're familiar with but haven't seen in a long time? It's the same kind of idea, like, he hasn't seen Griffith in a very long time. He hasn't been to the city in a very long time. So I think choosing Rickard out of all the characters was probably the smartest thing to do, rather than just having either a random character or even using somebody like Luca, that's in the city, to be Rickard, to be somebody that we saw back in the Golden Age, to have that history with Griffith. I think that was the best possible choice that they could have done. And that's why he is like the guy that decides that this is all wrong. This doesn't make sense. Like, everything is prosperous in this city. The technology seems to be advancing. People seem to be flourishing. And yet he knows, he's the only one that knows, that it was all built on the graves of his friends. And I love that he had the opportunity to live there. Like, Griffith wasn't out to get him. Griffith wasn't going to kill him. Griffith was like, hey, if you accept this, you can be here. You can live here with the rest of us. And then Rickard pulls out that motherfucking pimp hand, and he's just like, no, bitch! Smacks him across the face and says, I refuse to live happily on the graves of my friends. And I was like, Rickard is the biggest Chad I've ever seen in manga. Better than Guts, I don't care. Like, just the balls on that boy to do that.
He pulled out the Dave Chappelle, what the five fingers say, the face slap.
Yeah, exactly. Probably one of the greatest page turns in all. I'm not even kidding. Like, probably one of the greatest page turns in all of manga. You just see Rickard upset, turn that page, and you just see that smack, and you're just like, oh my god. Like, and I respect it, man. I respect it so much as a character, just like standing on his morals, standing on what he believes is right, and going for it, because he didn't have to, He wasn't even there. He wasn't even at the eclipse. He didn't even get to see it, with his own eyes. He could just be like, out of sight, out of mind. It is what it is. But he chose not to, and I just like, I don't know, man. It's one of the greatest moments in the whole manga for me.
Now, do you think that Griffith thought that he deserved that slap? Because we know that him and Sonia can read, like, the past of the World Spiral Tree, and it's sort of been alluded to that, like, you have to somewhat see the future for that to happen. And he's femto, he's a member of the God Hand, so he can read causality. So, like, do you think he just, like, said, you know what? I kind of deserve this in a way. I'm just going to let him slap me, because he could have easily have caught his hand and been like,
Yeah.
what now? What now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is partly that. I think it's I don't know if it's him thinking that he deserves it, but I think it might be like just letting Rickert have it. Because, it's not going to hurt him in the long run. It's not going to really do any damage. It's not going to change anything that he's doing. So why not just let Rickert do it? But there's also the strange thing in Berserk where they've explicitly said a few times that, like, no weapon can harm Griffith. And, we've seen arrows shot at him and they all miraculously miss. And, this is the only, like, physical blow that we've ever seen, actually be able to touch him, actually be able to hit him. So there could be something deeper to that too. It could be, just the pure conviction that Rickert had while doing it, like, just maybe because of how personal it was, added to the power of his strike. I don't know. It's like, you could look at it in a bunch of different ways. But I think maybe from Griffith's point of view, it was just kind of like, what's the harm in just letting, Rickert, let him lash out, let him get his little one up.
In light of what we know now, with Guts trying to swing a sword through him, he could have easily have just let the hand go right through his face. So, there were a couple things going on right there. The fact that he didn't stop his hand in midair, and the fact that he allowed his face to get hit, because as far as we know, Griffith can sort of materialize and immaterialize. He can make his whole body invisible, I guess you would say. Like, so I don't know. I guess he's like consciously saying to himself, I'm just gonna let Rickert have this moment and let Locust tell Roxas to assassinate him behind the scenes. And I don't know.
That's actually an interesting question. Do you think that Griffith is the one that ordered the Rickert to be assassinated, or do you think it was Locust who did it? Like, kind of not behind Griffith's back, but just didn't tell Griffith, was just like saw the disrespect, because we see him watching it and he like grabs the railing, So do you think it was Griffith that ordered it, or do you think it was Locust?
We do have a precedence of Griffith ordering assassinations. He told Guts to assassinate Julius back in the Golden Age arc, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. I could definitely see that. He just orders Roxas up to his chamber and tells him what to do, but I could also see it the other way, too. I could also see Locust being like, whispering in Roxas's ear, hey, we need to take care of this menace. We can't have dissent in the kingdom. We need to squash this as soon as possible. There's also a third possibility. Roxas wants to lop off Griffith's head, and he just took it upon himself. And he just said, you know what? I'm the only one that's going to hurt Griffith. No one else can touch him. That's my kill. So, at the end of the day, I don't know if we'll ever figure that out, but it's interesting to ponder.
Yeah, that's true. And I love that about it, too. That's one of my favorite things about Berserk also, is just how open it is to interpretation. Like, all of those could be correct. It could have been Griffith, it could have been Locust, or it could have been Rakshas, like, just deciding to do it. And literally, there's evidence to support every single answer. So, it's just one of the great things about Berserk.
No, that's a good question, too, is that... Now, we saw the meeting with Griffith and the various other officials in, like, the religious, sector and the military sector, kind of discussing how they should manage the kingdom in terms of, like, taxes and taking care of the youth and everything like that, education programs, and, like, do you think it's all Griffith at the end of the day? Do you think he's, like, kind of like the supreme commander-in-chief? He implements all the policy, everything comes down to him at the end of the day? Or do you think there's kind of, like, this behind the scenes kind of thing, like Locust is kind of like directing the apostles what to do? He's got maybe a little bit of authority that's not being, that hasn't been shown yet.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, Griffith is 100% the leader, but he chooses his followers very, very carefully. So I would imagine there's definitely tons of things that he doesn't do at all. Like, that he doesn't lift a finger, he doesn't even need to make the decision on, because he's already decided to put the correct person in place to make those decisions. So I think Locust probably has a lot of power. I think that whole council probably has a lot of power, because to Griffith, he's just above it all. If he needs to come make a change, he'll just come make a change. Other than that, he'll just let them do their thing. But it's interesting that chapter is actually very interesting, and I am waiting to see an official translation of it, because that should be in the next volume that gets released. You know the one I'm talking about, right? They're all sitting around like the council deciding like what to do. The conversations they're having are really interesting, because one of them is expanding the territory, and Griffith is talking about basically creating. It's not really. This is why I need a better translation, because I don't think he means different kingdoms, but I think he means like different establishments of people basically like going throughout the planet. That's what it feels like. That's what it seems like to me, like another establishment here, there. And so in my mind, I'm just like transferring that to mean basically like world domination, global domination is like what he's looking to do, because he's going out, he's killing the astral creatures, destroying them, taking their territories and whatnot. So what does that mean? Like, what is his entire goal with that? Like, is he literally just, did he unleash all of the astral creatures on the planet in order to kill them all, in order to have complete domination of the entire planet? Like, let's get rid of all of this. Let's erase them from the human consciousness, because if we make them all real and we kill them all, humans will know that they're gone. Therefore, they won't believe in them anymore. I mean, I don't know. Like, it could go like so far into that, but I feel like that whole segment is basically setting up this idea of global domination. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's really hard to say. I mean, I know he talks at one point about establishing the Second Great Empire, and he even references King Geyserix. So he does want to expand the territory. How far that might include, I have no idea. I mean, as it stands right now, Falconia is the only safe place for humans to live. I mean, if they live anywhere else in the world, they're essentially ants to these creatures. I mean, there's dragons, there's Hydra, there's harpies. I mean, there, trolls. I mean, it's uninhabitable at this point. And even Rickert mentions like, they were just kind of on the run, and they were just in like a little, shooting their little Gatling gun at these creatures. I mean, it's just. That's like the only place in the world now that humans can actually act like humans. They can be civilized. Otherwise, they're fighting for their life on a daily basis. So, I mean, it would make sense to sort of expand the territory, especially as they kind of bring more people into the kingdom. But, I don't know if that's just his overall purpose, is just to expand, just quote unquote world domination, or if it's anything further than that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, because it's strange, because you would think that he is like legitimately trying to herd everybody into Falconia, like to get everybody into one location for whatever the next phase of this plan could be, which we still don't really know. We still don't really fully know. I mean, we can speculate and have ideas, but we don't really know what's going on in his head. Griffith never has any inner monologue, really. Like, we never really know what he's thinking, which is kind of brilliant in a way.
There was that interesting quote back in the Eclipse where Void referred to all the sacrifices as lambs. And I'm just kind of thinking of that common idiom, leading the lambs to slaughter.
Yep.
So it could be that Griffith's just leading everyone to Falconia, get them all in one place, and then he's going to sacrifice everyone at the same time. I mean, that's always a possibility as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's a definite possibility. I feel like it's strange. I've gone on like two different ideas with it. I think we might have talked about it before, and of course this gets into a lot of headcanon because they don't really feed us a lot of information to explain it. But if the whole idea behind the idea of evil and the God hand is granting human desire, right? What does humanity really, really want deep down? And I feel like this idea of evil that persists within humanity is always going to exist as long as there is humanity. And so, to me, I'm thinking one of two things. Like, either the idea of evil is trying to fulfill mankind's desire by eliminating itself, which means it has to eliminate all of mankind. So a mass sacrifice, mass destruction, form all of humanity into one location and just wipe them out. With humanity gone, idea of evil is gone, everything's balanced. Perhaps, supposedly. Or it's trying to perpetuate its existence so that it always exists within the thoughts of mankind. So then basically you have this 1,000-year cycle that maybe happened last time with King Geyserek, where you create this like ongoing scenario where you build everything up and you tear everything down. You give people hope and then you rip it away. So you give people hope with Griffith and like the Messiah and Falconia and this great place to live, the sanctuary, and then eventually you tear it into pieces, like what happened with Geyserik's empire, which separates humanity all over the globe again. And then over the next 1,000 years, they build back up, you know, create hope, create a sanctuary, gets destroyed, and it just is this thing that just constantly happens, constantly keeping the idea of evil in play. So those are like my two ideas of what could potentially be happening with it. I don't know if you feel like there's any validity to either of them, but that's where I'm going with it right now.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of evil works in the way that it basically grants whatever the collective desire is. So people collectively, like the Band of the Hawk, you know, wanted Griffith to attain his dream, the kingdom, and when that was dying, he was given his demon form so that he could reinvigorate the dream, as it were. You know, when Griffith was reborn into the physical world, everyone was desiring the hawk, the white hawk of light, because they were living in miserable circumstances. They were poor, destitute, starving. There were sex cults with Nina. And, you know, so they desired some sort of savior, someone to bring the light into the world, as it were. So that's what the idea of evil gave them. So, you know, right now with the age of Fantasia, there's all these dangers in the world. There's all these monsters and apostles and astral creatures. So people are desiring safety. And I think that's kind of what Griffith is granting them, is safety within, you know, Falconia. So what's the next step? Does something go wrong in the kingdom and then they desire something else? Do they desire death to the kingdom eventually? Does Guts and his party come in and start ravishing everything, and then they desire, I don't know, some sort of protective force? It's hard to say. I mean, like, it's all depending on the people's collective sentiments, and that could literally change within like the next couple of chapters. We have no idea how much time has passed on Elfhelm. It was said that, you know, a couple days there could be months or years in the real world. I mean, with Griffith being the Moonlight Boy and going to Elfhelm, have things gone to shit? Are people wishing for the destruction of the kingdom now? Are they wishing for like a new leader? So it's so hard to predict these things.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. There's like so much going on. I would love to see a little bit of a time skip in Falconia, just to curious of like how much time has passed. I wouldn't want to see like 50 years or something. I feel like that might be too much, but maybe like a year or two would be interesting.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, see what, because Charlotte would have had to, you know, wind up bleeding, maybe, or man, I don't know. It'd be crazy if it went to like locusts or something. But
you know what's interesting, and I don't think anyone's ever mentioned this in the community, at least from what I can see. Griffith had sex with Charlotte, and then he turned into the Moonlight Boy and left on the World Spiral Tree.
Yeah.
Now, is it possible that he impregnated her? Can he do that?
He went out for a pack of
body?
smokes and never came back.
But like, I'm thinking, like, is there going to be like a little baby that she's going to be holding, maybe a little kiddo or something? Man, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be crazy. It's you know, Berserk's been very vague on the idea if like apostles or you know, whatever can reproduce, basically. Like, can they have children? Because we know that Griffith can corrupt a child that's already there, but can he create one? I don't know. But if he came back and Charlotte was pregnant, or like 9 months pregnant, like if 9 months had happened and like that's the birth of the true Antichrist, I don't know. It's getting crazy, but like that would be nuts, man. That would be nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes me wonder too, like what kind of powers would he imbue in that baby? Like,
yeah.
Who the heck knows?
Yeah. Would that be like the source of true destruction, you know? Like maybe Griffith was another stage in the plan to bring it forth. I don't know.
Or like wild. Griffith is the destruction and the baby's like the savior or something. You know?
The true Hawk of Light. Yeah. Yeah, that would be wild, man. So what else happened in the Fantasia arc? So let's go. So we talked about the Sea God stuff. Then we talked about the Rickert stuff. So then the next thing, I guess we could talk about the Spring Flowers of Distant Days chapters, the flashback. Yeah. Very interesting when this came up. I mean, obviously this chapter had already come out well after I or well before I became a fan of Berserk. So I read it, quickly, like everyone else did, pretty much. But I can imagine that all of a sudden shifting to a flashback scene was kind of strange when it first came out. When you were reading it through for the first time, and it decided to go in that direction, were you excited? Were you like, why is it doing this? Did you feel like it was filler? What did you feel when you first got to it?
Absolutely not filler. Anything by Kentaro Miura is not filler.
Yeah,
it's all It's all canon for me. So yeah, no, not in that regard. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting diversion because it's like, well, we already had the Golden Age arc. We kind of felt like we knew every pivotal moment in Guts' life. So this was like, okay, so you're gonna add to that canon a little bit. That's interesting. And I think there was a specific purpose behind those chapters, and I think that lies in Cheech. Because, as we learn, Cheech is attached to a flower, and she's got the healing abilities that all the other elves and Puck have, but as soon as that flower is gone, as soon as, the petals wilt away, she ended up dying. Now, this ended up being a precursor to the death of the cherry tree at Elfhelm and all the magical creatures and, disappearing into light. So there definitely was a purpose behind it. And it's very interesting, too, because when I emailed you those questions, the whole Fantasia arc has, like, dozens of flashbacks. And, we got the flashback with Guts when he was 14 years old with Cheech and when he was imprisoned. We got the flashback with Casca when Shirka and Farnese go into her memories and they see all the events that led up to the eclipse. We got the recent flashback in chapter 370 where Guts drops his Dragon Slayer and we see parts of the Golden Age arc. So I'm just wondering if all these flashbacks are like sort of designed for a specific purpose. Like, is this like... Was this Mira's way of setting up a major flashback to maybe Geyseric's kingdom? Or is it sort of kind of saying that things are repeating themselves like Flora talked about? Or, yeah, Flora. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, are things kind of repeating themselves and Mira's kind of showing how that's happening and maybe like we have to be like investigators and go back within the manga and try to like read his clues to see what he was kind of setting up. It's very fascinating, but I love those chapters with Guts, and especially given the fact that you read those chapters and then you go back to the Golden Age arc and seeing like the differences in the art style and how he's become so much more meticulous over time. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think that the flashbacks do have a purpose like that. I think it's... Again, I think it all leads back to that 1,000-year cycle and everything, and it's how history repeats itself and how one little thing leads to another thing, how the Chich's flower can relate to the spirit tree, how Geyseric's history relates to Guts, and Guts' whole history with the sword, that we'll get to that as well. I think that's all very, very deliberate, and I think that there are probably tons of clues in it that we don't even understand yet. We won't understand until something happens in the manga and we can be like, oh shit, like that's like the Chich thing, because that was built up to be like a tragic story and everyone believed that Chich had died when she was disconnected from the flower. But now it's not confirmed that she's alive, but we have a lot more evidence to support that she didn't die. She just wasn't able to be in the physical world anymore. She just went back to the astral world, like what happened with Danan and all those characters. So even though probably the time of those chapters coming out has been 8 years, but we now finally have confirmation that that doesn't necessarily mean that Chich was dead. And how cool would it be if she shows up in the manga again at some point? That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love it.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely right. And it's interesting, too, because Berserk doesn't really do a whole lot of traditional flashbacks. I mean, unless you count the entire Golden Age arc. That's another thing. But it doesn't really do that kind of stuff that often. So I feel like when it does, it is very, very important. Yeah, so let's see. So after that, that happens. Actually, I think that happens before the Rickert flashback, but regardless. And then we get to, of course, the arrival at Elfhelm and everything that happens there. And we were here for quite a while. So it kind of, again, it was one of those amazing things where it's like it set up Elfhelm so long ago. And by the time Guts finally gets there, you're just like, holy shit, we're actually here. And my heart goes out to everybody that had to wait through the boat ride to get there. I didn't become a Berserk fan until 2018, so I didn't have to suffer through the boat ride. But I hear that it was rough. I hear that it was really rough. So I feel bad for everybody that did.
Yeah, it was 9 years long. So and you know what's kind of interesting. The Fantasia arc officially started on chapter 308. The end is 370. They started on their boat, and now they're leaving on the boat.
Yeah,
so,
back on the boat. Yeah.
You know, never officially got off of it, if you want to look at it that way.
Boat arcs, man. Boat arcs are crazy. I remember when I was reading, well, Hunter x Hunter's on a boat right now. So, yeah we're on a boat. And then I remember probably like a year ago, Vinland Saga started an arc where they were finally going to go to Vinland. And they got on a boat, and I was like, please don't have a fucking boat arc. I can't do it. And thankfully, Vinland Saga's boat was only like 3 chapters before they got to Vinland. So I was like, oh my god, thank you. Thank you, we didn't have a boat arc.
Yeah, I need to catch up. I need to catch up with that. I think I left off where like Thorfinn and Gudrid got married. But then that was kind of like, I kind of fell off after that.
Yeah, it's picking back up again. It's getting pretty good if you wanted to binge it sometime, I would say. But, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so we get to Elfhelm, and we get introduced to a shit ton of new characters. We got Danan, who is the Flower Storm Monarch. We got Gedfring. We got my big titty Gotchief Morda. We got Puck's entire family of other elves that look exactly like him. We got the students that are there. We got, who else?
Hanar.
Hanar, yeah, the dwarf, man. Great to see. So many new characters. Of those new characters, you know, is there anyone that like stood out to you as either a favorite or just like a favorite moment, or I guess what was your kind of like what was your favorite introduction into Elfhelm?
I mean, it would be easy to go with Morda, but
yes.
I think I'm actually going to go more on the like in terms of like the info dump. I'm going to go with Gedfring just because the amount of information that he shared with the Guts' party is invaluable, and especially to us as the readers as well, because if you sort of read in between the lines, and like the amount of times I've read like chapters where he's talking, I can't even count, because it's like he talks about the world spiral tree, he talks about the barites on the island, the little substance that give weight to objects, which might explain, you know, possibly the eclipse and even like the apostles and the Godhand members, because if you remember, Gedfring was talking about how like if barites congregate in a huge concentration together, they create depression and sorrow. And that sounds exactly like what happens during an eclipse. You know, you get this huge, you know, tornado or vortex, and it surrounds everything. And then, you know, you get these like dark spirits that seem to give, you know, human beings this apostle form. You know, we saw these dark substances at Albion when they were taking down the Tower of Conviction, and we saw it on the island as everything was going to shit. So like, the amount of information that Gedfring has sort of like passed on to the party has been invaluable, and I think he might have a bigger purpose in the future as well. I think he's going to reveal even more information, just the same way that Flora revealed information about the Bailet and the astral realm, you know, talking to Shirka about how it's very similar to water. So yeah, I think he's going to be really interesting going forward. And, you know, he's talked about how you can summon daemons as well. So he might even have some like practical usability as well, in terms of like maybe summoning daemons to fight off like the apostles at Falconia. So I would go with him. But you know, if you're asking me like in terms of like curvaceousness, you know, obviously you know who we're going with. But no, Gedfring has been he's been a really interesting character.
Yeah, Gedfring was awesome. Every time, even when he showed up riding a goat, I knew I was gonna like him. I was like, this guy just riding around on a goat, like he's the man. He is the goat for doing that. Yeah, he was great. I really like Danan too. I think Danan was a great character introduction. I mean, just to be able to see like, well, one, like the elegance and beauty of kind of the astral world where we're used to seeing like trolls and like really dark demonic shit. So it's interesting to see like the opposite of that, where she's just like full of flower petals and like, you know, beauty and elegance and like everything that she was. So that was cool. And then also leading us to the Corridor of Dreams, and that whole sequence was really, really awesome to see, you know, after all this time, how long it took them to get there and all the struggles that they took to get through it. And, you know, she has a lot of mystery to her as well because people are saying that she looks very, very similar to the flashback that we saw with Geyserik. Could she be some sort of descendant or reincarnation or something to do with his lost love? They have this great scene, you know, where they're kind of staring at each other, and like the panel, I mean, Skull Knight has no expression because his face is a fucking skull, but like you see like them looking at each other, and it kind of feels like this, you know, there's something there, but it's too far gone to play into. Like whatever was there was 1,000 years ago, and like they're both completely different entities now than they were then. Maybe they were both human then, and now, you know, she's this creature, and then he's like just a whatever's left of his soul inside of a suit of armor. Like they're not even themselves, but yet there's enough of a connection where like they're able to see something in one another, but not really like understand what it is. Maybe I don't know. So I loved everything with her, and I was very upset to see her, you know, disappear at the destruction of Elfhelm. I kind of understand why they did it, because you do have a ton of characters, and it's kind of hard to like. I imagine it's really, really hard to write all of those characters together all in one place, especially when, you know, Miura is unfortunately not with us, so someone else is taking over all those characters. I imagine it's like really, really hard to write that many characters, you know. But yeah, I don't know. So I've always loved her ever since we got to the island and met her, and I was sad to see her go.
What are your thoughts on like in terms of like, do you feel like they utilized her correctly? I mean, I know she revived Casca's memories by leading them to the Corridor of Dreams, but there was that whole conversation that she had with Farnese where she was going to teach her how to use like healing magic. So I thought there would be some sort of kinship there where, you know, it would be student and teacher, and she would teach her various spells and such, and like it would be kind of a nice little diversion because Shirka could learn how to summon daemons, she could learn how to do healing magic, but it seems like they just kind of like toss that to the wayside, or maybe it's intentional. It's hard to tell with Berserk. You know, things that look like they toss to the wayside might show up 20, 30, 40 chapters in the future.
Yep. Yeah, that's why it's really hard to say. It is unfortunate because there was a lot of teases of particular things, and right now, like, we don't know if the reason it's not being played on is because there's a purpose for it in the future, or if it was a misdirect, or if, you know, because of Miura's passing, unfortunately, like maybe Kojimori and team just didn't receive that bit of information from Miura before he passed, so maybe they don't know how to incorporate it, and so they're just gonna not, you know, we don't really know. So that's unfortunate, but I was thinking that too when she mentioned that. I thought maybe it was gonna have something to do with finally eliminating the brand, or at least weakening it to a point where it doesn't affect like as badly as before, like more so than the charm that they put over it, but to make it suppressed even more. But yeah, I guess we'll never know at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunate.
And then we have, of course, the Corridor of Dreams sequence, which to me is one of the best scenes in the entire manga. Like, not just the Fantasia arc, but the entire manga. I love the whole aspect of going inside somebody's mind and seeing what the symbolism of particular things are. How Casca's unconscious just viewed Guts as this dog that was carrying around this coffin, like all of this dead weight that he isn't able to let go of. Like, it's a perfect metaphor of him carrying the deaths of all the Band of the Hawk members, like, on his back, and especially carrying Casca herself, because, you know, as dickish as it may seem to say sometimes, like, because of Casca, Guts has gone through a lot of shit, like a lot of horrible shit in his life as well. And it sort of is like, because he has to bring Casca with him, because he's carrying her along, she is kind of this weight. I mean, she's more than that, you know what I mean? But in like a dark, nightmarish version, there is that kind of aspect to it too, you know? And maybe that's how Casca views herself deep down, like a little bit. Like, Guts is torturing himself because of me, you know? So I always liked that. And like all the arrows in him as well, and like the flags of the hawk, like all that stuff is beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so symbolic, and I love seeing Farnese and Shirka have that sort of bonding experience with Casca. Even though they're not really sharing those moments with Casca, they're learning more and more about her past. They're like, I feel regret and sorrow and happiness, and, you know, they even see the scene where Guts is freaking mounting her, but, you know, you know what I'm talking about. But no, it's really interesting because they get to learn almost every single facet about her past. So it's this deep bonding experience, and like they've known each other for hundreds of chapters now, years in the manga, and yet they barely know who Casca is. They just know her as this adolescent adult who's, just running around doing nonsense stuff. I mean, they didn't know, like, what she did in the past, that she was a swordsman, that, she was part of the Band of the Hawk, that she had a rough and tough personality. She was very assertive and, a little bit put offish. And, she created this special bond with Guts and the rest of the Band of the Hawk. So I thought that was a really important moment for those two to sort of see who she was and be able to understand her a little more. I felt like that was really pivotal to sort of bringing her mind back to whole again, because they definitely wanted to do it for Guts' sake, bring Casca back, because they knew how important Casca was to him. But like, kind of seeing all those little moments was, I think, equally important for them, and saying, wow, like, yeah, we can see why Guts wants to bring her back, and now we understand why it's so important that she comes back into the fold and becomes a strong warrior again and can kind of take care of herself.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those moments too, like Guts doesn't tell anybody anything. Like, he's very reserved, right? And to actually to have those two characters experience everything Casca experienced through her memories, like, this was their way into the eclipse. They saw what happened, and not only that, they saw it through Casca's perspective. There's that whole scene where, well, all the scenes really, but like, you see Guts pinned down by the apostles across the way. Like, it's what Casca was seeing during that time. So in a way, they're sharing her trauma with themselves, and they're going through it and they're experiencing it, which, Shirokai's a child, I don't know, but she's important to be there. She's got magical abilities, she has to be there, but poor thing had to see some like horrible shit, corrupting her at an early age. But
well, hey, Guts got raped at 9 years old, so I think she can handle it.
That's true, he did. So they had to
just a brief diversion. Oh shit! It was in response to Shirka and the eclipse and everything.
Yeah. So Shirka.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I lost it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Well, Shirka was the only one that had an idea of what really happened besides Puck. Puck knew when Guts told Ricker what happened about the eclipse, because Puck was there. So Puck knew everything that happened, but the other characters didn't really know Guts' history, or Guts and Casca's history. So when Farnese and Shirokei experienced that through her, like, firsthand, that's one of, like, the major moments in the manga for me, is this, like, they finally understand the full scope of everything that happened, which leads them to, picking up the fragments of memories and putting Casca together, which I thought was a really good, like, symbolism of, putting the pieces back together, literally. And then ending with that eclipse scenario, with seeing like the demon child sort of in the center of everything, almost as if this was the most important thing, probably the only good thing that came out of all of this trauma was potentially, the child, because the child was innocent. It was corrupted, it was made to look demonic. To me, I always thought it looked like a pug, because pugs are just like ugly creatures, but they're still kind of cute at the same time. You know what I mean?
But, I love the honesty.
Yeah, no, for real. But, it is this, like, one good thing that could potentially, to go on from the trauma. Like, there's potential for something here. And for Casca to get reacquainted with her child, to create that bond with her child. And all of it was kind of hidden. And, yeah.
I think it was also important, too, like, I finally remember what I was going to say. Like, Shirka, from the very beginning of, like, the Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc, already understood that Griffith was this evil man, that there was some sort of dark presence that he was concealing from the rest of the people, but she saw it because she was a magician. I think it was really important that, Farnese and Shirka saw this dark, caliginous bird going over the landscape, and saw how traumatizing that that whole moment was to Casca. I think it's really important to know that, because as they go to Falconia, there might be some people in the Guts' party who look at Griffith and be like, well, this doesn't look like a bad guy. Like, why would we want to take him down? Why would we want to kill him? Why does Guts want to kill him? But now they kind of have that understanding, like, okay, there's a reason why Casca is so traumatized because of the moments that happened during the eclipse, and now they can kind of sort of commiserate with her and share in their sort of plight of taking down Griffith.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Because like the regular person wouldn't have any idea. It wouldn't make sense. Like, why do you think this guy is bad? Why do you think he's evil? He's doing everything to benefit mankind, right? Like from a regular person's perspective, like Griffith truly is a hero. It truly is like creating salvation. They don't know that he's created the entire horrific landscape that they live in, that they need salvation from. They just know him as that guy. I also love, this is completely different than what we were talking about, but I also love how Griffith shows them like the souls of the recently deceased before they kind of pass on, which, adds more credence to believing Griffith to be this messiah, because he's allowing you to see your loved ones before they go. So people just have every possible reason to just believe that he is that guy. You have the pontiff vouching for him. You have him going to be the next king. If we lived in the Berserk world as just a regular person, I mean, we would be there too. I'm sure we would,
Yeah.
So, it's another brilliant thing about the story, being able to do that.
Make Midland great again.
Make Midland great again. Absolutely, man. Got all of them wearing hats.
I think about that all the time, because, like, if you weren't Guts or Casca, what would your perspective of Griffith be? I mean, you would just have to go on the limited information that you know about, and you're like, well, the world's going to shit, there's all these monsters, and there's this one safe place that the future king is basically creating for us. And he's giving everyone jobs, and he's educating the youth, and, he's got the military, he's this and that, and everyone's so motivated, and there's all these craftsmen and bathhouses and such. It just looks like paradise on earth. Now, of course, from the outside, as a reader, we know what happened, and we know that, these sort of paradises turn out to be like the perfect breeding ground for like a future hellhole event, just like what happened at Albion. But if you were just living in that moment, it's hard to sort of take that perspective. It's like, things are pretty great for me. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Exactly. That's another reason why Rickert just has the biggest balls ever, because he could totally just live there and be fine. Like, he doesn't have to tell anybody, but he'd rather risk his life, fending for himself day to day than live comfortably knowing lost my train of thought. Instead of living comfortably, knowing the reason why he's living comfortably. I guess there's a better word to describe what I was saying, but
he's like the Edward Snowden of Falconia.
yeah, like letting out the information. He's exiled or he's incriminated. Yeah. So yeah, Casca's dreamscape happens, and after that, of course, we get the the inevitable meeting between Guts and Casca once more, and we think everything's going to be great. Casca's in a dress, and she looks gorgeous, and Guts is coming over. It's like, finally, we get to see them talk to each other. We get to see them speak for the first time in like 20 years, and then we don't. And then we realize Casca is unable to even see or communicate with Guts whatsoever because of her trauma and PTSD still inhabiting her mind, which is just classic Berserk tragedy. And to this day, they still haven't really been able to have a conversation.
It might be several more chapters before it happens now, with Griffith taking her away.
Yeah, now it's like, is it ever going to happen? It's just teasing us, man. But yeah, they are able to speak at one point when Guts is behind a tree. But the second that they make eye contact, or the second that she sees him, she breaks down.
No. She mentioned Isidro reminding her of judo.
Yes. Yeah.
And then once she thought of judo, she thought of the eclipse,
yeah.
And then she collapsed to the ground, clutching like her heart or her side or something. But just even like the thought of one of the previous members of the Band of the Hawk, just like, it's over. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, I mean, I don't even know what kind of life she can live from this point forward if she can't even, like, acknowledge her past. I mean, what's going to happen like when she talks to Griffith at Falconia? Because you would imagine she's going to wake up at some point from her stupor, and I don't know, because she regarded Griffith as like this savior. When she was going to get raped by that nobleman, Griffith came in and threw her a sword and like stand up and save yourself. And from that moment forward, she kind of viewed him as like this deity, as this godly figure. And I don't know if she's blocked out so much of the memories from the eclipse that maybe she still views Griffith as like that deity, or if like just merely talking to him or looking at him is going to... Well, I mean, the fact that, her brand was bleeding and she collapsed to the ground and she was screaming, I guess that was kind of our answer.
Yeah, so I think that Casca pretty much remembers everything now, because every time she had one of those flashbacks, we saw a little bit more. Like, she remembered first Griffith, like in the torture chamber, then she remembered Jadot, and I think by the time she saw Griffith, I think everything's come full circle. I can't, like, confirm that, but I feel like that's kind of the progression, because remember when she came out of the dreamscape, she was saying she remembered everything up to going to rescue Griffith, but I feel like every single PTSD moment she's had since then, she's seen a vision of a little bit more, so it's like still unraveling in her mind. I am probably most curious. I mean, I am very concerned about what's happening with Guts right now, but I am probably most curious about what's going to happen with Casca once she gets to Falconia, because dude, I mean, there's so many possibilities. There's so many fucking possibilities. Like, number one, Griffith, who knows? Like, she has the brand and everything that's going to constantly be a problem if she's living in Falconia and apostles are everywhere. But if anybody has the capability to remove the brand, I mean, what if Griffith did? What if Griffith just suppressed it or removed it or, like, healed her in some way and was like, all right, go, have free reign in Falconia. And I think that she's going to have free reign. I think that she still might be, like, enclosed within an area, but she's not going to be, like, in a prison cell. I think she's going to be able to, like, see the things that Griffith has done. And I think Griffith might treat her kind of like he treated Rickard. That was like, well, this is what I've done. This is what I've created. I mean, you're free to be here if you want to, And I don't think he's going to let her leave, but I think he's going to pose it as her choice, even though it's not really her choice. And I think that could lead to some scary shit. Like, it could lead to Casca seeing the prosperity of everything. It could lead to Casca seeing how well things are going. But then there's lots of character interactions that could happen too, like Casca and Sonia or Casca and Charlotte, and all of them have different visions of what they see Griffith as or what he's done. And it's going to depend on what Casca remembers. And it's just like, it's so crazy, like the potential of things that could happen once she gets there. So I have no idea where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Now, with her having the brand, let's say that Griffith can't get rid of the brand and it's just always there, then, I mean, he can only go so close to her. So do you think he uses, like, Charlotte as a mediator? Or do you think he uses, like, someone else? I mean, because, Casca still remembers Charlotte from the days of, back when they were part of the Band of the Hawks. So I think that would be kind of like a nice little transition, to Falconia, like, hey, I remember Charlotte's, like, I remember the good times that, we had together, like, and then she could maybe, like, talk up, like, Falconia and be like, oh, yeah, it's this wonderful place, like, they take care of us, this, that, the other things. So, yeah, it's hard to say.
I think she would, too, because Charlotte is just completely invested. Like, she's all about it, man. She always has been since day one. I think that even if Charlotte found out everything that Griffith did, even if she saw, she wouldn't even care. She wouldn't even give a shit. Like, she just is like, he did what he had to do, Like, she's so enamored with him. She's so within his grasp. But I don't think there's anything that could make Charlotte, be persuaded against Griffith at this point. I really.
So does it, like, if she found out about Casca and Griffith at the eclipse, is she just like, well, she's just a concubine, like, that's normal for a king, like, I don't care.
Well, yeah.
As long as I'm the queen, that's all I care about.
Exactly, bro. Or, she probably won't even believe it in the first place. But even if she did, I mean, she would probably just think, again, like, it's just something that had to be done at the time. He's with me now. Fuck it. Like, I really do. Like, I think she's just...
But, like, what if Sonia gave her a vision of what happened during the eclipse? You know how Sonia gave Shirka that vision of what happened to Virtanis? Like, hey, this is what Griffith did in the past. Like, do you think that kind of sways her opinion a little bit?
I mean, I think it could. If she saw, like, an actual, like, firsthand, vision of Griffith doing it, but I think that that would probably be the only thing. You know, short of that, I don't think that she would. And even then, I guess it just depends on how vivid it is. You know, how much she actually sees it. She could, if she turns away, just refuses to acknowledge it. You know, I don't know, but I just feel like she's just always going to be there. She's going to be a problem later on, I think, for a lot of characters, because she's just not going to give it up. Or she might be pregnant. Who knows? Yeah. So what else? What else do we got? We have, I guess the new chapters. Let's just talk about the continuation, Koji Mori and moving forward. So we've gotten a lot of Berserk chapters this year. A crazy amount, an unprecedented amount of Berserk chapters this year. So I give a full round of applause to Mori and Studio Gaga for pumping this out. I mean, they've probably been working on it all year long and just are releasing them now. But like, just that's crazy, man. Like that is something like is unheard of in the Berserk community, and to give that to the fans and to give us sort of a conclusion to this segment, this arc, and kind of do it in this way. I mean, I really appreciate what they're doing. And all leading up, I mean, we pretty much talked about all of that segment the last time that we collabed, so I guess we can mostly talk about the newest chapter, unless there's anything specific that you want to hit on from the previous ones. But overall, I would say that these 6 chapters that have been released, I've been a fan of. I don't really have any complaints. The only complaint I could possibly have is that I feel like we need a little bit more exposition as to, you know, why the Danan and everybody, you know, transferred back to the astral realm. I feel like we just need like a little bit more of an explanation here and there, especially why Puck and Avalora are still around. But yeah, but beyond that, I think that everything progressed in a way that makes sense to me. It's kind of like not 100% where I saw the story going, but I figured Griffith would show up on the island. I figured Griffith would take Casca. I figured the island would be destroyed. It didn't all happen the way I thought it would happen, but like in terms of, you know, accomplishing the bigger overall goals of where I thought the story was going, I think it makes sense. So none of it was kind of like too out there for me. You know, some people are like really surprised about the things that have happened and think that, you know, Mori is just writing his own thing, or, you know, it's not following what Miura was doing. But I don't agree with that at all. I think it's going exactly the way that Miura would have done it, or at least like the bigger concepts. You know, maybe he would have made the panels different. You know, maybe he would have drawn the scenes differently or added different dialogue. But I think it's going according to where he would have gone. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in regards to the whole thing with Puck and Ivalera, I think that only becomes a problem if they don't explain it relatively soon. And I think that's where maybe Gedfring would be very pivotal. He might be able to explain the fact that, you know, all the magical creatures in Danan were tied to the cherry tree, and as soon as the cherry tree, you know, disappeared and was destroyed, they also disappeared. Now, if he can explain why they're still around, I think that's okay. I mean, because we've had things in the past that weren't explained in the moment, but were explained several chapters or several hundred chapters later. But I think if they give us something that sort of is tangible and makes sense within the universe, then yeah, I have no issues with it. So it's not a big problem for me right now. I'm just more so curious than anything else. But if it's something that's never addressed in the future, then I would definitely have a problem with it, because I'd be like, well, that was kind of an issue. Like, it didn't exactly make sense why Puck is still around, considering the fact that he originally came from that island, and we think that Puck's, you know, family and brothers just kind of disappeared with everyone else. So why would he be exempt from that? Unless, like, fairies can sort of create like a spiritual bond with like a person in the physical world, and Puck and Guts have created this bond, and Ivalera and Shirka have created this bond, so maybe that's what's tying them to the physical realm, maybe, but I guess we're just not really sure at the moment.
Yeah, that's my best guess as well. My best guess is just that they've been with the group for so long and that there's this attachment and bond between them that they're able to stay there. But it is strange. It is something that I feel like they do need to address. I feel like we do need some exposition. Like, you know, like I like stories, you know, not spoon feeding the audience, which Berserk has never done. But there are times even in Berserk where there are big exposition dumps because we need to know stuff. Like when we first met Shurikei, or when we first got to Elfhelm. Like there are those chapters where they basically like explain everything to you, you know, and I just feel like we're getting close to needing that. But beyond that, we got to talk about what's happening with Guts.
Yes.
So this is a very strange place that we've ever seen this character in, because Guts has always been that guy that just has this indomitable will of the human spirit that's able to get up, that's able to fight ever since he was a child. No matter how horrific a situation he was in, he always decided to do something about it. You know, he never rolled over and just let the universe or fate or whatever have its way with him. Like, he always decided to do whatever he could within his power to fight back. And it's one of like the most impressive and inspiring things about Guts as a character. It's just that he just won't give the world the satisfaction of defeating him, and I love that about him. And even after, I'd say his other two most traumatic moments, I mean, the Donovan thing, he immediately got revenge, you know, and then the Eclipse, you know, he was obviously like heartbroken, distraught. He let out that burst. He ran through the woods, let out that burst of emotion, cried, got it out, but then immediately was like, I'm going to do something about this. He may have gone about it in a destructive way that kind of maybe brought birth to the Beast of Darkness, and like, you know, maybe not the best way to deal with this trauma. However, he refused to just sit down and just allow, you know, the universe to overtake him. And so to actually see Guts like this petrified, and to drop his sword and to just, you know, kind of stare at it as if it's this foreign object, like looking at it from across the room, like what is this thing is useless to me right now. Like I can't even rely on the only thing I've ever relied on. And this is a different Guts than we've ever seen before. We've seen rage-filled Guts, we've seen vengeful Guts, we've seen Guts in love. This is like depressed Guts, you know, like truly depressed. I mean, he's been in some dark emotions, dark energy before, but this is like, I think this is brand new for this character, a brand new kind of like almost wanting to give up entirely, where he's never been before. So I don't know. How did you read that last chapter, and what did you feel like there was symbolism with him dropping the sword and looking at it, or I guess how did you feel about the last couple of panels?
So I think the way that I'm interpreting it, and this is because I read some previous chapters and sort of thought about it a little bit. Because, you know, when you first read the chapter, you get an initial impression about it, but you don't have time to, like, ruminate on your thoughts. Like, you got to get that review out, so you're like, okay, I just got to say what I'm thinking right now, and I'll think about it a little more and contextualize it in the future. But after, you know, contextualizing the situation, the first thing I thought about was you know, the symbolism and the parallels to Griffith's dream. Now, the one thing that sort of motivated Griffith in life was that he always had that shining kingdom off in the distance. You know, no matter how far away he was from that shining kingdom, as long as he was making forward progress, as long as he was doing something to get a little bit closer to it, he felt like he had something to hold on to. Even though it wasn't tangible, it wasn't something that he could sleep with at night where, you know, Guts could sleep with his sword. It was something that he could believe in. And for Guts, you know, especially when he was considering leaving the Band of the Hawk, and I remember that one scene where he was like, he was on a rooftop and he was staring up at the moon and he had his sword in hand. And I just thought about that moment. I'm like, so for Griffith, it was his dream that gave him this confidence in the future, that gave him confidence in himself. And for Guts, it's always been his sword. Ever since the very beginning, you know, when Gambino cut that little that gashed into his nose, and then he gave him that ointment. You know, it's all been about clutching onto that sword for safety and, you know, for self-assurance, I guess you could say. And for the first time in his life, you know, he lost that self-assurance. And when Griffith lost his self-assurance, when he thought that the dream was dead, he lost all hope. He couldn't think straight. He was in the Midland torture chambers. Of course, you know, he had to go through all the physical pain, but he was more so emotionally broken than anything else. And the only thing you could think of was Guts the entire time, because Guts ripped that dream out of his hands. And I'm just wondering if, like, because you know how everything repeats itself, I'm wondering if because Guts has lost his only form of self-assurance, i.e. his sword, that he'll also fall into this pit of despair where all he thinks about is Griffith. And especially with him having the Baylets in his possession, I wonder if that might be like the trigger that sort of like sets it off, and then he'll be given that choice where it's like, you don't have your sword anymore. You've lost everything. You lost Casca. You don't have the Band of the Hawk. You have nothing, you know. And you want to defeat Griffith? Why not sacrifice Istro and Shirka and Serpico? You don't need them anymore. Gain that power, gain some sort of self-assurance within yourself again, and go accomplish your goal. And I don't know. I mean, Guts is going to have a hell of a choice because, I mean, if he feels like he can't rely on anything else, he might feel compelled to do it. He might feel compelled to, like, well, fuck it. Like, what else do I have to live for at this moment? I don't think he will, but I could definitely see him going through, like, an internal monologue where he's, like, definitely weighing the options in his head.
Yeah, I could see that, too. I could see... I would like a whole chapter of that, or multiple chapters of that. Maybe, like, a conversation between him and the Beast of Darkness, kind of mulling it over of, like, what to do. Because remember the last time the Beast of Darkness was, like, speaking to him, it was saying, like, all right, you go do your thing. I'm just going to wait down here, wait in the shadows, hang out in the background. There was, like, this whole chapter of, like, the dog kind of, like, walking into the shadow, like, you do your thing, but I'm always going to be here. I'm never going to leave, and I'm going to wait for my right moment. And I think this might be that moment. So I would love to see a whole chapter of just, like, a conversation within Guts' mind of the things that he should do, and how, you know, the Beast will just tell him to say fuck it and just kill everybody, do everything you have to get back to Griffith, to destroy him, to, you know, enact this vengeance that you've always wanted. And even the Beast before was, like, trying to compel him to just kill Casca, like, just get rid of her, like, she's just just get rid of her and go after Griffith, you know. And now with all of this added baggage, you know, it could be saying that about his entire group, like, you know, what good are they really going to do you? Like, what, I mean, may as well just get rid of them. Like, it's just going to weigh you down. It's going to be more people you can lose. You know, it's like, may as well just do it yourself. Like, fuck it, right? So, I don't know where it's going to go with that, but I would love to see something like that. If the Bailet is put into use, I'm really curious about what would happen because, well, we still don't know where the God Hand is right now, like what they're doing, you know? Like, we haven't seen or heard from the God Hand in a really, really long time. Which is good. I like that the story does. I don't want them to be, like, in the forefront. I like that when they show up, it's, like, important. You know, it means something when they show up. So if he had, like, a face-to-face encounter with them, I have no idea, like, what would even be said or what would happen. I mean, obviously, I feel like the whole boat would be destroyed regardless. You know, like, I don't think that's surviving that encounter. I don't think Guts would ever do it because just of what Guts stands for and the fact that he went through an eclipse himself. So I don't think that would ever be in the cards for Guts to ultimately do it. But the conversation to have leading up to it, I think would be very, very interesting. Like, weighing the pros and cons of the potential of doing this. It would also be really interesting to have the other characters face to face with the God Hand. Like, you know, these characters have never seen them before. They don't know. I mean, Shirkei knows about them. She knows them, but she has never been there. You know, she's never seen them. So that would be crazy. That would be wild. I don't know which direction they're going to go. They could go Bailet. They could go Berserker armor going crazy. You know, they could go in every single possible direction. So, and I don't even know if the story is going to pick up right here. We might be stuck in limbo about this for like 6 months. Because the story might cut to Falconia. It might cut to something else. And we might be literally wondering what the hell Guts is going to do for the next year. Who knows? I hope not. but yeah.
I mean, if we're going to divert to something else, I vote for Rickards and the Bakuraka. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I'd love to see Guts and crew, like, meet up with them at some point. Like, if they are just on the journey through the ocean. And I don't know where, you know, Salat's mountain is that they were going to, but maybe somewhere they could land and fight each other. That would be cool.
Now, do you think at this point in the story, do you think, like, with Guts having the Berserker armor, because Morda was very concerned about Guts being alone in the room with the Berserker armor, do you think it's kind of a liability at this point in the story? Do you feel like it's a little bit too dangerous? You know, we always see his hand shaking, and he's literally on the edge of giving in to the Beast of Darkness. I mean, do you think it's just time to put it to the wayside and be like, we need to find a different means in which you can fight Griffith and the Apostles? Or do you think, like, he's just got to, like, you know, get through it somehow and just utilize it the best he can?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be either. I mean, I feel like he didn't use it against Griffith for a few reasons, but I think one of them is that knowing that the next time he uses it will probably be his last. So that is a concern, and I think Morta was correct in because she doesn't know Guts like the same way that everyone else does. You know, she just sees it from the outside, and she saw that whole segment when they went to visit Hanar, and Guts kind of freaked out in the cave and everything. So from her point of view, she's not really wrong. I'm not trying to just defend my goth GF here, but like, she's not really wrong from her point of view. And thinking it's a concern, and it could be definitely a concern, especially if you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Like, there's nowhere to go if Guts starts fucking attacking and can't tell friend from foe. Like, you're kind of stuck. So I'd be concerned too. Sorry, wait, what was your original question? I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, do you think he should still use the Berserker armor at this point going forward?
Yeah,
or do you think he should like?
I think that it's still going to be in play because Hanar also mentioned like there's ways to master the Berserker armor, and I think that a lot of the themes of Berserk is being able to like understand and incorporate your inner darkness to help you, like understanding that it's a part of you, so it's not something you should ignore, or it's not something you should just pretend doesn't exist, or anything like that. But there are moments where we can utilize that darkness to help us, but we have to control it and not let it control us. And I think that's like one of the deeper kind of core themes of the story, in my opinion. So I think that that's going to come into play with Guts being able to kind of master the armor in some way. He might only be able to do it once. It might be like that big moment when they finally get to Falconia and this is it. We're just going to delve into it. And that might be what the whole conversation leads to. If we have a chapter where the Beast of Darkness and Guts are having this back and forth, that might be what it ultimately leads to, is Guts kind of really delving into himself and discovering it and figuring out a way for both of them to kind of coexist, without destroying one another.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the whole point of Berserk is that, when people get desperate, they give into evil and they give into power. And I think Guts' journey is going to sort of culminate with overcoming that urge and finding a way to sort of blend, his internal beast of darkness into his conscious self and create this sort of harmony, if you will, where he combines good and evil, and he creates this like positive, like neutral force almost, instead of this like purely evil or purely good force. Like, even though the elves and Donan had this like paradise on Elfhelm, we kind of found out with all those like dark amorphous objects that they were actually using these what I thought were maybe like barites, maybe like huge concentrations of them, to sort of like, I don't know how you would put it, like power up the islands, or
it's like you need dark with light. Like, you can't just have one. Like, you need to have that balance. So they need to be there also, I would say. I like that segment. Because it showed that there are sort of like darker things on Elfhelm too, but they're not just like trying to destroy the island. Like, there's a balance here on this island that doesn't seem to be balanced anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, so you got the apostles who completely give in to the darkness. They're consumed by it. You had the people in Elfhelm who sort of separated the two, like, no, we just don't want anything to do with it. Like, we don't even want to acknowledge it. It's going to be down in the depths with, like, Hanar and the other, like, trolls and such. Not trolls, what was he again?
There was a witch down there.
Volvapa, yeah. There was a word for him. I can't remember now. But, so I feel like Guts is kind of in the middle, He's kind of like, he's got to find a way to get a little bit of both worlds, like be consumed by the darkness, but not so much that he loses that internal light. So the challenge is how does he accomplish that? Does he do it with the Berserker armor, or does he find a way on his own with his own sort of internal OD, as it were?
I could see it going either way. I really, really could. I could see like the mastery of the Berserker armor, or I could see, just the symbolism of Guts kind of stripping everything down and being like, this is just me. Like, let's do this, I just want to see Guts be able to overcome it, man, in some way and move forward. So, hopefully it goes in that direction, but I feel like it's going to get a lot darker before it gets better. I feel like we're going to get some really dark shit with Guts' psyche right now. I think that this is setting us up for something like really, really intense. Also, I did hear some people saying it was kind of like a meta thing as well, kind of like the opinions of Studio Gaga losing Kentaro Miura, like the symbolism of kind of dropping the sword and needing to take, how immense it feels to kind of like take on this project and whatnot. So there could be a little bit of like a metaphor in there as well. Just like, this is so daunting, this is so rough, like, this is going to be a journey moving forward to try to do this. So I kind of like that as well. And I think they really have been honoring Miura the entire way through, which is good.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that sentiment. It's an interesting metaphor, and definitely it seems to fall in line with the daunting tasks that they have in front of them. So yeah, I like that idea.
Right on. All right, so I'm not sure how long we've been recording for. I need to take off at 3, so we're getting about there my time. Is there any kind of like other things you want to discuss with either the current chapters or the future of Berserk?
I think we hit upon, the big subjects. I was going to ask you about, like, the Berserk Memorial Edition. Have you been keeping up with that? And what are your thoughts about any potential... I mean, I know, like, the Campfire of Dreams is going to be, like, some new scenes in there. Do you think it's going to be substantial, or do you think it's literally going to be, like, a couple minutes and that's about it? Because so far, unless you're not keeping up with the Memorial Edition, there's 3 episodes out, and it's been exactly the same as the movies 10 years ago. So it's been a little bit of a disappointment, to be honest.
Yeah, unfortunately, that might actually be the only new scene that we're getting, with it being kind of cut up like this. Also, I noticed with episode 2, they needed to buy so much time, so they threw in like a 4-minute like music montage in the beginning of the episode. God. And it spoils the entire thing. So if this is your first time watching Berserk, you literally like saw everything that's going to happen in those first 4 minutes. So even to this day, I would say, well, if you're going to experience Berserk for the first time, just watch the 97 anime. That's still what I would recommend. Even though I saw the movies first, just knowing everything I know now, I would say like the 97 is still superior. But hopefully we'll get some more scenes. But that might be it. It might only be Bonfire Dreams. That might be the only new scene that we get. But oh well, I guess.
And then we got this big Berserk announcement that's happening on December 11th. What are your thoughts on that? Because I produced a video just a couple days ago that was I guess a little bit contentious, where I speculated that it's going to be a countdown to the DVD / Blu-ray edition of the Memorial Edition, because that's kind of like the ending date of those episodes. So I'm like, it's just going to be a website. They're going to try to sell you some merchandise, because if you go on the website itself, you scroll down, it takes you to a link for buying the magazine in which Berserk is produced in. So I'm like, that might be kind of might be the key right there.
I've learned not to get my hopes up for things like this, because they tend to not be anything that people expect it to be. I remember when Berserk did something like this before, and
New Beginning.
Yeah, a new beginning, and it wasn't anything and people thought new anime, people thought this and that, and it wasn't any of those things. So I don't get my hopes up too much for it. But goddamn, you put a countdown on something, I'm like, fuck, this is exciting. What is this? I'm so like bought into marketing sometimes, but at least I recognize what's happening. I'm like, this is just stupid marketing, but goddamn, it's working. Like, what is it? So yeah, I think it might be like really stupid. It might just literally be the countdown to the eclipse in the show. Because if you think about like the number of episodes that it's going to reach when it gets there, it might literally just be like a countdown literally to the eclipse. And then when it counts down, that's the episode the eclipse happens. It could be like, a release of the memorial on like a Blu-ray or something like that. And it could be, I don't think it's going to be a new anime, really. I would be surprised. I'd say there's like a 10% chance. I'd be pretty surprised, but I guess I won't rule it out. I don't want to say no, and then all of a sudden it does. So, but I'd say it's highly unlikely. It's probably just something simple.
Yeah, and it's so disappointing too, because I've been keeping up with Chainsaw Man, and that's rated MA, and it's pretty damn gory. And it's like, why can't Berserk be produced like this in the 21st century? Like, why can't we get like beautiful animation and something that's faithful to the story? Like, I understand there's some things you can't show. Like, I would love to see Wyald, but I understand there's certain scenes that go along with him that just they don't work in TV formats, but like they could definitely pull off the Black Swordsman arc or the Conviction arc in like a 2D sort of style. Like why can't we see that? Like why can't Studio Mappa be like, okay, Berserk, it's your turn. You've waited long enough. Like
I don't get it. I don't get it. I think that 2016 ruined it for a lot. But I hope that the animators behind it understand that it's not the property as to why that show did bad. It's because the animation was ass. Like, it's, like, it has nothing to do with Berserk. And actually, I don't know how much of it you watched. I couldn't make it through that much. But it actually was telling the story, other than the first episode where they did the Black Swordsman bar scene, but then they hopped to, like, Farnese and the horse. I don't know. It was weird. But after that, they were telling the story fairly well, I thought. It's just like the animation was so bad I couldn't watch it. So it's not the story, it's not the property, it's the fucking animation. So if they could just come up with something better than that. But I know it's like a big task to take on, because if you're going to make a Berserk anime, there's a lot to animate. It has a lot of fans, so I'm sure it's like probably something that gives people a lot of pause, like they're kind of scared to touch it, But at this point, it can't be ruined more than it already has been. So there's really nowhere to go but up at this point.
You say that now, but
yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean the anime. I mean, I regrettably watched too much of it, to be honest with you. But there were big skips in a lot of the battles. Like you said, the animation was just so ass. But like there was a lot of changes in terms of like the bar scene in the very first episode. For example, Isujo was in that bar. Yeah, so then you had the Black Swordsman arc where they fought the skeletons in the forest, and Colette kills her grandfather or father, and Guts has to off her, and then they skipped the Lost Children's chapters and went right to Farnese and the Holy Iron Chain Knights confronting Guts. So it was like, there's a lot of information that's just kind of going by the wayside here. So it was just, there were so many things that were disappointing and left so much to be desired.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'd love to see a continuation of that, but, or, I mean, a new version. I'd love to see a new version of that, but, again, I won't get my hopes up. But maybe when the countdown goes down, it'll be like, hey, guys, brand new Berserk anime by Studio Mappa. And I'll be like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Or, what's the one that did Demon Slayer? Ufotable, right?
I'm not sure.
I think so. I think they were the ones that did, no, that was... Beastars was like Studio Orange or something, and I think Ufotable did Demon Slayer. Any one of those studios I would be absolutely thrilled with too. Or Studio Mappa has done a phenomenal job with Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man, but yes, yeah. But then they just choose some no-name studio that no one's ever heard of, and they're like, okay, try your best. And it's like, it just felt like they didn't have the reputation, and I'm guessing they probably didn't have the budget. I mean, I know with animation nowadays, it's all about how much cash can you bring in, and seinen manga just don't generate the sort of cash that like a shonen's going to produce, like a Dragon Ball Z or a One Piece or something.
It's harder to get into because of the subject matter, but Berserk is so, like, I'd say Berserk is probably one of the more popular senens out there, for sure. And it has a lot of stuff that I think people can gravitate towards, just as far as, like, the action sequences, the character designs, like, the demonic things that are happening. I saw a Twitter post. The guy, Matt Walsh, I think he said that all anime was demonic and adults shouldn't be watching anime. And I tweeted back a picture of Berserk Void in the Eclipse. And I was like, how is this demonic? It's like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Just made me laugh. Anyways, so this has been a pretty good discussion, man. Definitely had fun. So for those of you that are uninitiated or unaware, the link to your channel will be down in the description below. Go subscribe to him, give him some love, give him some thumbs up, watch some reviews, have a good time. Anything you want to say or plug before we sign off?
No, I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about. We're both reading Hunter x Hunter 2, and after 4 years, Togashi is finally producing a new chapter. 391 is coming out this Sunday, so look out for that, guys. But subscribe to the channel if you're interested, and thanks for having me again, Ryan. I always love these discussions. It's always a great time talking to you.
Absolutely, anytime, man. And we'll see how things go in the future. We gotta wait 2 months before the next Berserk chapter, but we'll see where it goes from there. But all right, guys, thanks for watching. Give the video a like, comment, subscribe. We'll talk to you later.